Hi there. Good day, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good wonderful day that we're here with my friend, Terza. Terza is one of my good friends that I've learned to trust and know and listen to because has it not been for Terza, I may not know about Web3. She is one of the people that I first embarked on the journey of NFTs. Being a digital artist or just an artist overall, she already knew so much about NFTs. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to Tirza. And I would really like you to share with me and your audience, how did you first get into the digital art, your background, and then step into Web3?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for inviting me on your podcast. I am honored. Donna and I are great friends. It's been a wonderful journey together. And so I really started my working life as an engineer. And much later, I discovered creating art and fell in love with art. And then a little while after that, I discovered digital art. It just um, I have been loving digital art ever since. And then I was introduced to cryptocurrency, and by way of cryptocurrency, I was introduced to NFTs. And NFTs I found were a fantastic way to display and share and sell and trade my digital art.
So
So
how did you first get into the digital art? How did you find it? How did you know how did you know to go into that medium, or how did you know to do that?
I think it found me is what happened.
How did it find you?
um, I was actually reading. I like to look at technology and innovations a lot. That's one of my, I won't say hobbies, but something I'm very interested in. I'm still interested in science and mathematics, and so I just follow along. And in any case, I realized I could do digital art on my iPad. So I had to go buy an Apple Pencil so I could learn how to do that, and that was fun. It was okay. I didn't have as much fun with that as the physical art. But then AI came along and AI apps, and I began playing with those. Now, I love words. So, words, art, engineering, it all came together.
And how did that happen? When you say you like words, you
Mhm,
were already an artist.
mhm.
Were you a specific type of artist that really leaned into digital art, or what type of artist were you so our audience understands what gifts you already had?
I have no formal training in art. I never thought I would be an artist. It was not anything I just even thought about. And before my 50th birthday, a friend of mine showed me what she was doing with fabrics. And when she initially showed me, I thought, oh, the quilting. Well, my mother does gorgeous quilts, but it's the work my mother does, it's very exacting. And you have to do a lot of what I thought was tedious work, but I loved the fabrics. So I began making art sculptures and digital, or not, sorry, physical hangings with textured fabrics, and learned how to make texture with thread. I mean, it was just, I fell in love. And then because I was not trained, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do certain things or whether you were or not. So I would actually go into my husband's workshop and just pick up things and go, I wonder what I could do with this. I don't know. And I go back to my studio. And I
So you got
play with
very
it.
creative with what you brought to the table. Then you
Yes.
went into some other areas that you probably shouldn't have been in,
Yep.
but you explored and you expanded and you grew and you went into the digital art. And in the digital art, the engineering, the art, and the words all came together. How
Yes.
so?
I'm just super curious. And so I'm not afraid to try things. So even though, if you put in the words, well, a cat drinking coffee, oh, okay, that's cool. But then I would add words like, I don't know, quantum entanglement. What will that do? I don't know. Let's add glitch. I don't know. So I had the same level of just adventure with the words as I did when I started the physical art.
So the tears factor, the digital art, or what I see every day that you produce and that's out there, how did that come to happen? Was that before the NFTs or after the NFTs? How did you bring all that together to end up being the NFT queen that I know that brought me into the Web3 space?
Okay, so the NFTs, I was actually started before the digital art. So one of the things that I had learned to do was I would, for example, one of the things I played with was something called alcohol inks, right? And when you work with alcohol inks, the colors move around. So I learned to take my phone and take pictures of it in its various stages. And then I would take those pictures and put them online. And I use those pictures to create things like not tunics and shoes and other things. So that's where it really started. The digital art, then I was starting to augment what my pictures, okay? Right. And then when I heard about some of these apps I could play with, I just started playing with those, and I mixed the pictures I already had with my words, right? Or I would take my art and then I would add more words and more layers. It was just a blast. So
that's how I've seen you grow, and the pictures fine tune themselves into images that are just so beautiful to the eye. Or to someone who has an eye for cats and your coffee cats. That's really been an eye opener and something to see. So you accomplished that, and it sounds like you went into some other products with it, and that provided another revenue stream.
Yes. So that's when I could use those products now on my clothing. And then since I was already learning about cryptocurrency, that came from a different direction because that came more from my engineering background. So what's this crypto thing? What do you mean you can program money? What is that supposed to be?
So tell us about that crypto thing and the cryptocurrencies. How did you waltz into that?
I was curious about Bitcoin. So way back in the beginning, I was invited by somebody to go buy some Bitcoin or something. I didn't, because I went and did a little research and it looked like it was only done by criminals. You know the story, right? Like, okay, that sounds too risky for me. But then a few years later, it was like, okay, Bitcoin, blockchain. How cool is that? And then I learned that NFTs were just additional contracts on the blockchain. And so for me, the whole journey of NFTs is about the blockchain. And then I began learning all the other things you can put on the blockchain, real estate contracts and everything else. It was like, this is very, very cool. And I think that's where we're all going, whether we know it or not.
So what should our listeners be aware of about NFTs that they may not know at this time or be unsure about? What are the main elements of an NFT? What is an NFT? Let's start there.
Okay, an NFT, it stands for non-fungible token. And I know that's a mouthful, and fungible has nothing to do with mushrooms, but fungible just means similar to or the same as. So, for example, a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin looks like any other Bitcoin. If I give you a Bitcoin, you don't really care because it looks the same as any other. But when I give you an NFT, that's non-fungible, meaning it's unique and there's nothing like it anywhere else. And when you mint, what they call mint an NFT, you're taking that asset, whether it's a picture, mainly it's pictures, or a document or anything. When I sell you an NFT, what you get is I put that into a specific address on the internet, on the blockchain. You actually own that little spot now. You own that address. It turns out, hopefully, that address points to the NFT you think you bought. But it should, because that's part of the programming.
So if someone's looking at NFTs and they don't know much about the blockchain, what would you say is a good way for our audience to understand, why are they coming into our ecosystem? Why are they becoming so important? What do they do?
Well, they're part of the ecosystem that it's become, our world in some respects is becoming decentralized. So before, if you wanted a piece of art, you bought it mostly, say, at an art gallery. You go into the gallery and you buy the piece and you take it home with you. And it was just, that's a central location. NFT is decentralized, so you can be anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection. And the way to buy it, you can buy that address, you can buy that NFT, and it's yours. And that information, the information about your sale, is recorded on the blockchain. So then if you go to sell it to someone else or give it to somebody else, they not only now get the NFT, they get all the information that's encoded with it. And so the history is always pulled forward.
So that could be quite valuable over time, especially if it's something in the art collection world or in the art and digital world.
Yes, definitely.
I've read that there's some of these NFTs that have a lot of value.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Now, that part I wish I could explain better. But part of it is when somebody decides that something is valuable, they'll pay more money for it. Right. And then if it starts to gain a lot of popularity as your audience grows, it'll just go up in price and it'll continue gaining in value. The second important thing, though, to know, Donna, about NFTs is the royalties. And that's what made me very excited as an artist. Because like a lot of artists, I don't necessarily know the value of my work. So, and in fact, I'm often still surprised when I create some art and I think, well, that's interesting. And I put it out there and people are like, oh, that's really great. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then another piece that I worked hard on and I thought was really terrific. And I throw that out there kind of like, eh. So I'm not the judge of whether my audience likes my art or not. My point in that is, if on the day that I created it, I didn't feel very good about it and I sell it to you for $10, okay, I made my $10. But you were excited about it because you know about it and you go sell it for $1,000. Wow, that's cool. Cool for you. But it's also cool for me because I will get a percentage of that sale.
Now
and
you're
every
hitting on
time
something.
It's sold afterwards, I get a percentage of the sale because it's recorded on the blockchain that I was the artist, I was the creator when I created it. That's why it's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting because now we're talking about more money. Everybody's talking about getting their coins and getting paid. And right now, I think you said something that's going to be quite interesting for everyone. Sounds like you can make another stream of income out of this in the NFTs. Is that what makes it popular?
Yes.
And who sets the percentage of what is going to happen and how it's going to happen? Who sets that percentage? Is that just something that happens like today? It could be depending on the item, depending on who wants it, supply and demand. And is that going to be how that works in the new economy, do you think, or with NFTs? Or is it kind of just depending on whether it's a limited edition or how do you, not sure exactly how to pose the question, but how does it decide it, what the percentage or value is for the artist?
So that's an interesting question. And right now, it depends on which platform you go with. So there are a lot of NFT marketplaces out there on the platforms. And up until now or recently, it was typically 5 or 10% of royalty on future sales. There's been some pushback on some platforms that they don't want to do that anymore. And then there's further pushback on them for not wanting to do that anymore. So there are some platforms, like, for example, Rarible, that has taken a stand and said, not only are we going to continue to pay the royalties, but we're not even going to allow NFTs that were minted on a platform that doesn't pay royalties on ours.
Wow.
And since they are one of the top 3 NFT marketplaces, I think they'll have a little weight.
And what's the name of that platform again?
Rarible. Rarible. Rarible.
Rarible. That's a new one for me. I wasn't aware of that. You hadn't taught me that, Terza. I didn't know that yet. Okay, Prof. So at the end
Yes.
of the day, what do you think, are there any downsides to NFTs that make you nervous? What keeps you up at night?
The downside is that they are backed by cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency of any type, it seems to be very volatile, way more volatile than the stock market. So, for example, and so does the value of things. So, the very first tweet by Jack Dorsey, which sold for something like, he minted it as an NFT and sold it for something like $2 million. Well, the person who bought it in his great excitement has not been able to sell it for, nobody will give him more than $10 for it at the moment. It's lost its popularity. You can't predict that. That could happen in the art world too. So there's volatility to be considered. There's also inflation. So there's a lot of scams out there in terms of overvaluing what something is actually worth. And so you'll have to pay attention to those. I wish I could give you a certain formula that says, oh, go check this out. I can't. Art is in the eyes of the beholder. To be honest, when I first saw the Crypto Kitties, which was one of the early collections, I thought they were kind of, well, they didn't appeal to me as an artist. But it doesn't matter what I think. It's what the marketplace thinks, and they're still considered very valuable. They're like digital trading cards.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that changes with time. The collection of them,
Yep.
the value of them,
Yes.
and any type of investment that you make sometime is at risk, just
That's
like
right.
coins or stamps or anything else.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, you talked about their NFTs are in several places in the Web3 ecosystem.
Yes.
And where do you see the best use of them at this time? Even though we're still emerging and a lot is still not clear, what's on your wish list?
You know what I'm really looking forward to is doing real estate on the blockchain. Now that probably sounds kind of crazy, but imagine you did your shopping for a house, an investment property online. You did your due diligence. You might have even had some boots on the ground, somebody to go check it out. But instead of going to a closing where you have to sign 200 pieces of paper, you could go to the blockchain because its provenance will have been stored on the blockchain. So this plot of land, this size, this, whatever the survey parameters are, it was, minted in 1910, from the 1910 land grab, right? And then it was sold to, you could put all of that information on the blockchain so that when you buy a house, you don't have to do that entire search anymore because it's stored right there.
Now that's exciting. That would save a lot of time.
It would. And then, you'll read the documentation, the smart contract that comes with your house. You send over your whatever coin you're going to use, and they drop the key in the mail to you, or maybe later it'll be digital keys. And you go up to the house and use your digital key and open the door, and voila, it's yours.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow. So I read a little bit about that, and that's another way of having some income, some passive income, of course, if you're an investor. But if you get into the smart contracts and real estate and investing, and, as you transfer the value of the asset, that can be another way of making money and still bring value and income. So it looks to me, I think, this is my personal opinion, and that's why I'm here. The more we talk about Web3, the more we get to know the new jargon and the new terminology and the new ways of making money or transferring value, the better off we're all going to be in being successful in the future and aligning our strategies for our personal or our business life.
Yes.
So it seems so exciting on what's going on, but there also appears to be a downside to it that I'm trying to make sure that we still talk about, but more importantly, as we shape the future and then we work together and shape tomorrow, in a more positive way,
Mhm.
that we understand the opportunities, the limitations, and sometimes the bad actors can still be out there like anything else in the world.
Mhm.
You mentioned NFTs in a marketplace. What does that mean? Is that like a metaverse, virtual reality? What is that marketplace? So that NFT marketplace. I think there's some interest in that.
It doesn't have to be a metaverse. You don't have to get there by VR. That could be. That would be fun. um, but really, it's really the same as online shopping. So when you go to Amazon or Walmart or whatever, some other retail site, and you go look for something, that's an online marketplace, right? It doesn't exist physically anywhere. It exists inside the computer, inside the cloud. NFTs are like that too. Now, technically speaking, if there was a huge world catastrophe and the electricity went off and there was no internet, well, there'd be no ownership either. But if that happens, we have a much bigger problems to worry about.
I don't want to talk about that.
No, but I'm just saying. Otherwise, when you own something, it's there on the internet somewhere. And one of the things that's been cool is that people all over the world. That's the whole point of Decentralized. The database is replicated all over the world. So if something were to happen to one copy of the database, you shouldn't worry because it's been replicated across thousands of databases around the world. The other thing is anywhere you can get to an internet connection, you can do business, right? So if you live in a small village in the Andes that still has electricity and a way to get on the internet, you can do business on the blockchain. Some of the women were approached by this. They were tired of getting their hopes up. People would come in and make them microloans, and that was really cool. They'd get their businesses up and running, but then the nearest bank was in a big city days away. So they pack up their money and hike the days it takes to get to the big city. And if they were lucky, they were not robbed by bandits along the way. On the other hand, if they had been paid when they got paid in Bitcoin, they didn't have to go anywhere and they knew their money was safe. There were no bandits who could go hold them up at gunpoint or whatever and take their money. So that was a huge, huge relief. So anybody, anywhere with a little bit of training can have access to a cryptocurrency.
So the wallets, do you know anything about the wallets?
There's the online
cryptocurrency?
Wallets and cold wallets. A cold wallet really just looks like, not this exactly, but it's kind of this.
Mm-hmm.
Put your cryptocurrency on the cold wallet. And as long as you have your password and your keys, it's safe with you. If somebody were to pick this up from me, they wouldn't be able to do anything with it because they wouldn't have the password and the secret keys, pass keys.
Is that like your private key?
It's your private
key, your private key, and
both of them. The bad thing about that is if people were lax about storing that information somewhere else, there is the famous or infamous story of a gentleman who supposedly has millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin stored on his digital wallet, and he accidentally threw it away. And he has petitioned the city and where he lives for the permission to go scour the city dump. And he's even offered to share the Bitcoin that's on that wallet with them. And so far they have not granted him permission, citing it's too dangerous to go, digging around in there.
So he just loses everything.
Yep.
So the moral of the story is do not lose your password, do not lose your public key, your private key,
and don't lose the cold wallet.
Well, Terza, that is a good way to close this off. Do not lose your wallet
or your information. I even I tell people to actually write it down. Seriously, I know it sounds old-fashioned, but this is a piece of paper. It's not on the internet.
Okay. You heard it first here. Terza, I really appreciate your time. Tell everybody how they can get and connect with you or follow up with you or follow you. You want to share any information? I'm sure you have some people out there that want to know a little bit more about NFTs or digital art.
Mm-hmm. I have let's see, I have a link to a newsletter if people would like to sign up, but the best way really is to look for me on social media, Facebook, under my name, facebook.com/Terza Ekholm. Start there, and everything else will become much easier. You can message me. That's probably where if I don't live there, at least I'm connected there most of the time.
She's there most of the time, all the time. That's where I see her and where I've met her. So at the end of the day, thank you so much for your time, the opportunity, everything that you've shared with myself and the audience. And Pivoting to Web3 podcast is on its way with Terza Ekholm, the Terza Factor. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Pivoting to Web3 at pivotingtoweb3.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that it gets to you with every episode that comes out. We have lots of great opportunities, limitations, and downward spirals being revealed by our guests. And thank you in advance for all your reviews and comments. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to serving you in the next week's episode.